Hello, everyone. My name is Ann Umland. I'm a senior curator in the Department of Painting and Sculpture at the Museum of Modern Art. And as you can tell, I'm not at the museum. I'm live streaming from my home, and I am just thrilled to be joined tonight by the legendary artist, activist, and author Faith Ringgold. Faith is not only an extraordinary artist, but a key voice in American culture. And I am so grateful to her for agreeing to speak with me and with all of you out there listening tonight. She's also streaming from her home, and she's joined by her two daughters, Michelle and Barbara, and Dorian from ACA Galleries. So hello, Faith and Michelle and Barbara and Dorian. So great to see all of you. So to all of you out there, we are so sorry that we can't welcome you into the galleries during these difficult times, but we are just delighted to have this opportunity to bring the museum and the artists and the art that we all care about to you at home with this, which is our 10th Virtual Views Live Q&A. So I want to especially welcome our MoMA members and our donors. We're so grateful for your support at this critical time, and we're so glad that you're here with us for this live program. So our focus this week is on the remarkable over 5-decade-long career of Faith Ringgold, beginning with her paintings of the 1960s. And among those works is her iconic 1967 American People's Series number 20 die, which is now installed in the museum's 5th floor galleries, patiently awaiting our public's return. So tonight, we're also going to touch on Faith's activism, past and present, the many other forms her practice has taken over the years, and talk about the important role that her many exceptional children's books have played in disseminating her art and ideas far beyond the museum's walls. So we've received a lot of great questions about Faith's work over the last few days, and we also encourage everyone listening to submit your questions to us live. You can do this in the YouTube chat feature next to the video, either to the right or below the video, depending on your device, or you can send your question via email to membership@moma.org, and our producer, Sean, will pass the questions along to me. So we want to give our viewers a few minutes to continue tuning in and getting settled. So Faith and I are going to begin by looking at some of her paintings from the early 1960s, and we will turn to your questions along the way. So Faith,
yes,
I hear that before you made works like these, you were working on landscapes and flowers, and you brought them to the gallerist named Ruth White, and she said to you, quote, "You can't paint like this," end quote. Is that the moment you realized you had paint your own experience?
well, she said that was, I didn't expect to hear her say that. I actually wanted to join her gallery. And, I expected her to say, well, no, you can't join. But she didn't say that. She says, you can't do this. And that just threw me completely off.
Yeah.
But I stopped
What do
doing
you
it.
think?
I stopped doing it, and I started doing dye. Other paintings like that, not dye at that time. But I mean, other paintings, that spoke of the time, what's going on now.
In the time. So I think one of the pictures that we've been looking at together is called Portrait of an American Youth, that was inspired by your brother. Maybe they can bring that picture back up again so our audience can see it. But that young man, I think, can symbolize every young Black man who was struck down in his youth and never had a chance to have a life. Like he could be Emmett Till or George Floyd and all those other young Black men facing racism. So I wondered, looking at that picture, Faith, could you tell me about the symbols in it, like the downward facing arrow and the white silhouette? What was going on there?
Well, it was very difficult in those times. And of course, we're having a difficult time again now, right now. However, it was a lot more difficult in those days. And my brother seemed to be a great symbol of the difficulty. He was such a sweet guy. I loved him so much. But he wanted to do more things than it was allowed for him to do because he was a Black young man. And so I put this painting together and just using the symbols of what was problematic for him. The arrows pointing down means his life is to be down, down and out, away from him. And then there's the stop sign, red, and there is, oh my, oh yeah, well, the white man, you can't miss him, I don't think. The arrows you can't miss, and the white shadow behind my brother's head, you can't miss either.
Right.
So you know, you can put it together with the symbols that that I have there.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
it pleased me a lot.
Yeah, it's a really powerful picture that speaks volumes to today. And then on the other side, you also have this other painting called God Bless America. I think this was your first flag painting.
America, this is, God Bless America, right. And the series is called American People Series. And And
am
American
I right,
people.
Faith, did you later go to jail for organizing an exhibition of flags? Am I remembering that? Because it was illegal to desecrate the flags?
Well, let's put it that way. They arrested me, but I never went to jail. Nah.
Well, lucky you.
No, but they, you know, the what was the name of those different organizations that were there?
Oh, the Black Panthers?
ACLU. ACLU and what else?
Got you.
Yeah, I had
NAACP.
NAACP. I had a lot of organizations that were looking out for me. So they arrested me, yes, for what they said, desecrating the flag.
Yeah,
was that what they wanted to do?
That was what I read.
I never desecrated the flag, but that's what they wanted to arrest me for. So they did. And I went to the prison. What's the name of that prison in New York? The Tombs? No.
The Tombs?
No, the
Rikers?
ones.
Rikers?
No, not Rikers. It was the Women's House or something. Anyway.
Oh, I think we're going to get to that later. Actually, so maybe we have one more. I think we have the very first painting from your American People series to look at called Between Friends. Let's see if they can find that picture for us. And that was painted in the summer in Oak Bluffs.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, I believe you were teaching at this point, and I wondered what were relationships like in 1963?
People were trying to be friendly, and a lot of people were. And between friends, it was difficult sometimes to be friendly with some people, but it was going on. The Neuberger Museum of Art was where I had the show of the whole American People series. And there were, 20 paintings in the group in the 60s.
Yes.
20 paintings in the group
right.
in the 60s.
Actually, here we have, maybe we should just move to painting number 20 in the American People series. Right, shall we look at that? Because that is the one that, can we pull that up? American People, number 20, die. So that's,
this was the final one in the series.
It's the biggest too, isn't it? Am I right?
It was, oh my God, 20 feet.
Oh, no,
12. Anyway, it's so I think, Faith, that you used to take Michelle and Barbara to the Museum of Modern Art every week
We used to
Picasso's
go,
Guernica.
any friends they had, we went.
Yeah.
And it was very, I wanted them to know about art. And if they were interested in being artists, I wanted to be able to have them be knowledgeable.
Knowledgeable. So I understood that dye was inspired by Picasso's Guernica.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was the painting we used to go looking for every, well, I don't know, once
When you went. So I was
times a month. Sunday was.
and
was
thinking
our day
back
at the
to
museum.
like at the beginning with the American People series and painting your reality, I wondered if you could talk to us a bit about what it was like for you in 1967 in Harlem when you at the time of this work.
Mhm. Well, everything was, I thought, wonderful in a lot of ways. Everything was good. And there was a lot of segregation, of course. There were Black people living in Harlem. And except that all through the time, there was integration going on. People were moving out, and but there was a lot of very famous Black people living in Harlem. I mean, you could walk down the street and you run into, oh my God, everybody. But you couldn't get all excited about who you were looking at. You know, went up to them and said, "Oh, isn't your name Sarah Vaughan or Billie Holiday?" Or no, don't do that. Because they wanted to just be, natural.
Yeah, they just wanted to be people. So, Faith, we have a question from someone out in the internet ether. May I share it with you?
Sure.
The question that comes from Nicole Galicia, and she writes, Mrs. Ringgold, I run a mentorship program for 6 brown girls from Harlem called the Orchid Foundation. We fell in love with your art after visiting MoMA and accidentally discovering your work, American People series, number 20 dye. To all of our surprise, there were Black people on the wall at MoMA. We collectively got excited and then occupied the bench in front of your work, staring in awe for what seemed like an eternity. Excuse me, but I've never seen a Black person, especially not a Black woman, in a painting in any major museum ever. So I thank you for that experience. And my question for you is, how do you suggest I encourage a love of art in teenagers when most of what's displayed does not represent them?
Well, I think it would be, I don't know that would be so prevalent today, that they wouldn't be represented because, everything's going on. Again, like it was in the 60s, we're getting the whole thing all over again. Yes. So, and it's really nice in a way because the society, the American society just keeps repeating itself.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is good. And the art should too, I would think. At least that's the way mine is.
Yeah.
Repetitions of conceiving of the being impressed, being inspired by the times we live in. So Ruth White's gallery was right. You can't do this. Do your own time and place.
Right. No more flowers and landscapes.
No, leave that alone. And let's see what the people look like what's going on.
Right. So here's one. Here's another question for you, if you're ready. It's from Evie Shockley, who has been a MoMA member for 9 years. And so her question is about dye too. And she writes, though blood and violence are the focus of this piece, I find myself thinking as well about the clothing in the image. All the figures are dressed uniformly according to gender, and for the women, girls, according to age, but without regard to race, in what might be taken for their Sunday best. What things were you thinking about when you made these choices the yellow dresses, white shirts, black pants and ties, etc.
Well, I wanted to definitely make the point that these people are not people who are normally in the street fighting. This is a spontaneous street riot that could just happen anytime, anywhere, with anybody.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. People, obviously, they got their kids with them. So somebody was out walking around or whatever, and boom, here comes some crazy person maybe who ran through and did what they wanted to do. This was very prevalent in the 60s.
In the 60s.
It wasn't until, I guess, the 70s when we used to see it, spontaneous street riots in the newspapers, and they were what?
Illustrated?
Yeah, they were cited.
Reported.
And reported. Yeah, but in the 60s, no, not prevalent. Nobody knew, unless you were there. Unless you were there, then you knew.
So is it fair to say in painting dye, you were giving visual form, right, to things that were left out of the news?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I was. I had to. I mean, it really was happening a lot.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Oh, I have one more question for you coming in from someone called Grace Yun.
Yes.
And she's asked, Ms. Ringgold, you have said, I saw dye as a prophecy of our times. Why do you believe the power of your art in dye created over 50 years ago so deeply resonates in contemporary America to capture this historic moment in the 21st century and its impact in society?
Well, it just seems to be repeating itself over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But it's becoming more and more profound. I mean, my goodness, what's happening right now is something I've never seen before.
Yes, tell me more about that, Faith. In what way? Because you've seen so much. So what do you?
Yes, but I've never seen this many people in the street. No.
So
and I have never seen this many people of all colors, huh? And young people with, the only thing that's different is, well, older people are not there. And that might have something to do with the
yes, with the pandemic.
The pandemic. But it's fascinating to see how many people are out there together, mixing race and sex and age groups, the young people with the young, the children with the young people.
Right.
It's a fascinating time.
Yes.
I'm very interested to see where it's going to go from here.
Yeah, me too, Faith. I mean, I hope it brings, right, that we all keep focused on this so that there is real change and that we aren't seeing history repeat itself over and over again. So I wonder, maybe we can look at a couple more of your pictures from the 60s. Although we have so much. So then another one, we have another American People series. This one is called U.S. Postage Stamp Commemorating the Advent of Black Power. So this painting is from the same year as dye, and it's also really, really big. And I think for me, I've always been so interested, the letters spelling out Black Power are quite legible in that diagonal. But that isn't the case with white power. And I wonder, maybe we can even flip the picture so people can see that better. But I was curious why you made the white power illegible, hard to read, invisible.
Well, I wanted to put white power and black power in there.
Yep.
Black power you're going to see because black against white is very distinct. So
Yeah.
there's 100% or 90 white faces, okay?
Uh-huh.
And 10 Black ones. Black power,
Uh-huh.
huh? and,
Uh-huh.
and the name of it is American People White Power, right?
Right. America.
Okay, so it's a little something to figure out.
Yeah.
And it's one of the stamps. We used to have all kinds of stamps commemorating different events. So this
Uh-huh.
is the U.S. postage stamp commemorating the advent of Black Power.
Black
I remember
power.
when I first heard that Black Power, I said, wow, what are they talking about? You know? But then
Uh-huh.
everybody started yelling it. And so I put the Black people in there. And then
Uh-huh.
and I think the idea of having the Black people in there, but only 10 of them, huh?
Right.
Shows you how little power that was.
Yes.
That's why it shocked me when I heard
Yes.
Black Power.
Yes. No, and it's, I mean, and then writing white power in makes it sort of this subliminal message.
Yeah, I'm
right?
trying to make everybody understand. We're talking about the percentage of one group opposed to another group. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Black power, white power.
Yeah. And then here, this is another one just from a couple of years later called Flag for the Moon from 1969. And I guess that was the year America landed on the moon. And I wondered how you felt about millions of dollars being spent to get to the moon while the Black community was suffering on the ground.
Well, that's why I did Die Nigger. Flag for the Moon, Die Nigger. Because nobody was thinking about the Black people. They were going to the moon, and that costs a lot of money. Yep. And I don't know I can't remember what was achieved by that, but.
By the moon landing. Oh, here comes a live question for you, Faith, from Leslie Shipley, who asks, Ms. Ringgold, you are such an influential and inspirational artist activist. Could you share your perspective on the importance of art for social change? And do you think art can affect change?
Well, I hope so. I think that it's a wonderfully powerful means of expression to be able to express how you feel through art. Yeah. And it's all, what should I say, different. You know, you can go your own way. You really have a lot of power in doing it.
Yeah, individual expression.
I think it's wonderful to be able to do this. And at that time, we were working a lot with paintings that were called Black paintings. I don't know, were they called Black paintings?
Oh, Black, because this is I think I remember reading that you saw Ad Reinhardt's Black on Black paintings, and then you decided to create this Black Light series, of which Flag for the Moon is one.
Oh, I love those Black paintings.
Of Reinhardt.
It was the style of working.
Yeah.
And at that time in the 60s.
Oh, here we have sorry. I have another live question from someone this name is fabulous. I'm going to read it to you. It's called Shoebox. This is a question from Shoebox of Angels. And Shoebox of Angels wants to know, Faith, when did you first realize that you wanted to be an artist? And did any other artists influence you?
Well, I've been making art and creating art for as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, I had asthma, so I had to stay home a lot. And my mother home taught me. what do you call it? Homeschooled.
Yeah,
I was
homeschool.
homeschooled through the first, second grade, and then it kind of, I could go back to school more. And so therefore I did my work, and I also had my art. So I've been doing art forever. My father bought me my first easel, and it's just been part of my life, part of my training, part of everything.
Yeah. Well, we are so lucky.
And I do consider myself very lucky. So creating art is just a natural thing, was a natural thing in my life.
Uh-huh. That is, yeah, that's a great thing for people to hear, I think, and important, right? That's so, oh, look, now I have something else to show you here. Can we, I think we have some photographs from like a moment when you stopped painting, I think, right? And after you finished like American People and Black Light, you began protesting at museums to include women and Black artists in their program. But am I right that thinking that you did all the work and then the male artists like Romare Bearden got all the museum shows? Is that right?
I wouldn't blame it on Romy. Wasn't his fault. He was the man, but that's not his fault.
No, not his fault.
I mean, it was pretty hard. It was very, very hard. So I became a feminist because I said, well, I'm out here trying to fight for equality and all, but I'm leaving myself out. Can't do that. So I said, I better get into some
women's rights. So actually, let's look at this next picture for the Women's House in 1972. This is such an incredible project.
Oh yeah.
After the women's movement had begun, and you created these works to empower women. And I think, can you tell us about this one? I think we could call it your first feminist work, created for the incarcerated women on Rikers. And I think,
no, 1971. No, it wasn't my first.
First feminist.
First feminist work? Maybe, I don't know. I don't think so.
We had all those posters.
Yeah, well, art historians are always.
Yeah. This was, oh my goodness. I wanted to show the women in the Women's House of Detention, right? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
And I wanted to show them the different things, different parts of life or in America that they had no participation in. And let's see what we could do about that, And they didn't understand what I was talking about, of course, because what happened is the painting got stolen and went to another gallery.
No, it got painted.
It got painted. Wait a minute,
it
became a men's house.
It became a men's house.
And they covered it with that White House paint.
Oh, it's so horrible. I can't tell
but
you.
It's been restored now, hasn't it? Didn't you go to see it last fall?
Fabulously well.
Yeah.
And it's got a good history.
Traveled.
Yeah, and it's traveled. And,
right.
Yeah.
So what was it?
And the painting was about all the different things that women could not do at that time. There's very little they could do.
Right.
But they couldn't drive buses, they couldn't be policemen, they couldn't play football or any of the sports.
Couldn't play the drums.
They couldn't play, they definitely couldn't play drums. No music, no drums. Oh my goodness. They couldn't be ministers or participate in the weddings of other women. They couldn't drive a bus or a public bus or whatever, train. Oh my. Yes.
And so in
But
this
they-
painting, Faith, are you showing women in all those professions?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm trying to show the women in prison where I was visiting to give them some encouragement
Right.
and to show them what was possible for them. Now today, this is nothing. You've got all kinds of women doing everything, right?
Yeah, but it's good to hear from you. Not, that is a very recent development. Here is a question from someone from Tootsie Warhol, who is a MoMA member for 12 years. And Faith, Tootsie Warhol would like to know, do you consider all of your work to be activist art? Or do you make non-activist work?
Do I make well, I made my gardens and flowers and trees.
So those were the non-activist,
Been there, done that.
but all the rest,
So,
yeah, has been.
No, I like to get involved with what's happening in the world.
Yeah, I think, yes, you've been doing that in a really
That's what I
important
like.
way.
And
So,
boy, it's a lot coming up today,
yes,
right?
yes, there is a lot. So let's see, I'm wondering should we look at one of the Family of Women from 1973, the installation you made?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my.
Because I think, right, so this is another work that came after you became a feminist, and that had a big effect on your work, like in the masks from the Family of Women.
Oh,
And I'm
my
wondering,
goodness. The one wonderful thing about this series of masks, I could wear all these masks because I had gone to Africa to.
yeah. What year did you go to Africa, Faith? When?
I went in 77 by myself. And then in 76, maybe. Was it 76? Okay, you know. Anyway, I went over there to Nigeria and Ghana, and oh my goodness, I saw such beautiful art that and the masks could be worn. So all of my masks could be worn by me.
Could be worn. And
yeah, I used to give lectures in my mask, and oh my goodness, it was wonderful. I loved it.
I read that you used these masks for performances at universities, that you traveled around the country performing at universities. And I wondered, what were the messages in those performances?
Well, freedom, just do it. Anyone can fly, do yours. Do whatever you feel.
Yeah.
And how wonderful the art, those masks were, and how they were sculpturally wonderful.
Yes.
And the biggest thing about them, I thought, was the fact that they could be worn. They could be worn. And you know what? They're a little bit like what's happening today with the masks on. Huh? Yeah, you put it on your face.
Although I like your masks a lot better, but maybe.
Okay, if you say.
But you're right, Faith, that is a connection. So we're going to look at one other performance piece of yours, which I am interested in, because this is not a part of your work that I knew well. So there's a work from 76 called Wake and Resurrection of the Bicentennial Negro. So
yes.
I think this
the wake and resurrection, the wake and resurrection of the Bicentennial Negro. Yes. This was a very important painting that I did, because when I went to Africa, I saw, oh my goodness, I saw so many beautiful things. And I also went to a funeral that was so gorgeous. And when I came back, I made masks, and I would perform for kids.
Universities.
And I would dress them up in the hats that had the masks in them, you know, and they would perform this funeral, and I didn't know whether that was going to work or not, but it did. Oh my God, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I would get at least 4 kids who would be, this was college though, and
Mhm.
who would wear them as, wear these outfits. And the audience would tune in, and oh, it was really very, very spontaneous crowds of students.
Oh,
And,
so, mm,
and wonderful. I never had such responses from an audience as I did when I was performing.
when you were performing. So
these,
Faith, I have a question. I have another question for you from Ronnie Heyman, who is the president of MoMA, and she wants to ask you. She said, "Were you surprised, Faith, that it took 50 years for MoMA to acquire dye? It has been on view every day since it arrived at the museum, and it's one of the most popular paintings."
Well, I don't know about that. What are you asking me? Was I surprised to what?
That was Ronnie's question. Were you surprised that it took 50 years for the museum to acquire that painting?
Well, I didn't stop trying. So I don't know. I guess it did surprise me, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
just
I mean,
keep on trying till you get in.
well, we're glad you did. Am I right that initially in the 1960s, when you did the American series, no one was buying them? Is that right? Like, you kept all those pictures.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it took the world time to catch up to you, I think. So we have another question for you, and this comes from Martin Rosenberg, who asks if you could talk about your story quilt. So maybe we could put up your first story quilt, Who's Afraid of Aunt Jemima, from 1983, which has turned out to be especially timely, because I don't know if you read in the newspaper, did you see that Quaker Oats just announced they're going to change the name of the pancake mix in the syrup and
I
everything?
didn't, but I think my daughter told me that was the case. They're going to change the name
because it's based on a racial stereotype, and they are finally deciding to. But I think with this quilt, it's like in all of your work, you took something that was controversial and degrading, and you turned it into something very inspiring and beautiful. I wondered if you could talk to us a little bit about this as I think it's the first story quilt that you made, what the stories are.
Yes, it is. It's an early, definitely the first, yes. And I wanted to give her a story on Jemima. Why should she just be a big character that they decided they didn't like anymore? So I said, I'm gonna tell her story. I'll make it up for her and tell it. And I did.
Yeah.
And
I think we have a detail of this. Maybe we could see a little, so people out there, because there's so many stories on there.
There it is, a smaller one where you can see. I gave her. I told her story. Her family. I created a family for her, complete family, and therefore giving her a history.
Yes.
And not just ridiculing her the way, what do you call those things that are not so
Caricatures or stereotypes?
No,
Racial slur.
yeah, well, slurs and but there's something else that they're called. What is it? I can't remember. Anyway, I wanted to give these people a story, a life.
Yeah.
you know, why does Aunt Jemima have to be
Right.
so nothing
Derogatory.
and derogatory, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So I showed you her mother, her father, her husband, and then I gave them a life, what
Yeah.
they did, how
right,
they're not just
right,
Aunt Jemima being a slave.
right.
She's
Entrepreneur.
an entrepreneur, and her and her husband opened a restaurant, and they sold those pancakes and things, but not just as
Right, you made
nothing.
her into an individual and a powerful woman, which,
Yeah, that's
so
it.
it's like someone was saying, you scratch the surface of any work by Faith Ringgold and you will find social commentary there. So I think that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
very true for this. So
Well,
here,
it's unfortunate, but we as Black people have had to give ourselves a lift because other than that, what do you got to look at it as artists? Nothing but the
right,
trees and the flowers. And
right,
what
right.
did Ruth Grace?
Ruth White?
What's the name?
Ruth
White?
White?
Yeah, Ruth White said, no, you can't give us that.
Right.
Don't do it.
So actually, we have another one of your quilts we wanted to share with people. It's called Tar Beach from 1988. And I think I heard that if by this point you'd been trying to have your autobiography published and you couldn't, right? Am I correct? You got all these rejections, and so you decided to write your story on this canvas. And this was subsequently made into a children's book, which I know is just beloved around the world. And it was also made into an animated short by HBO in 1999, and a silkscreen on silk was created. And I wondered, like, why is it named Tar Beach, and how did you get to this? And why do you think people
Well,
love
we
it
used
so
to
much?
go up, you know, I was born in Harlem, and when we were kids, there was no, I was born in 1930, so there was no air conditioning or anything. But when it got hot, we would go up on the roof. And all the way down the street, we lived on Edgecombe Avenue. If you looked, there'd be people on their roofs, and it was wonderful. So I did this painting, and I called it Tar Beach because that's what, I'm not sure why I called it Tar Beach. It has to be a reason for that. Do you remember?
Yeah, Birdie told you, your husband.
Oh, yeah, Bertie, my husband.
Your husband. Oh,
He lived in 409. We weren't married then. We were kids. But when we used to go up on Tar Beach, and I looked down the street and I saw all these rooftops, and he lived in the highest one on the street. And after, you know, we grew up and everything, and I was talking to him about Tar Beach, and he said, yeah, everybody went up there. He said, I used to have birds, and I kept them on the roof, and this and that. And I said, oh, no kidding. So it was very exciting to create this thing because, as I said, we didn't have air conditioning. There was no air conditioning then.
right.
And I made this in 1988.
88?
Right.
Right.
And then I wrote a children's book about it also.
Right.
Yeah, this was my first
Children's book.
First
my
children's
first
book.
children's book.
And
Yes.
it won all these awards, right, Faith? This got a Caldecox
Oh,
Award, and I certainly read it to my children, and I know some of my colleagues tuning in tonight with their children have been reading Tar Beach and your other books. So,
yeah.
yeah, I wondered just a little bit while we're here, if you could talk a little bit about like children's books in your practice, because it seems like such a vital dimension of what you do.
Well, you know, I never had a plan to create children's books, except that I got a request to create a children's book. And I said, oh, well, you know, what is it going to be about? And blah, blah. And then I had to think about what this children's book was going to be. This would have been my first children's book, which most artists would not do, because that's not, in those days, that wouldn't be considered art. You know, that's some kind of children's thing, and it's not real art. And so I said, oh my goodness, that doesn't make any sense. I can do what I want. And so I made this quilt. It was my first quilt. No, it wasn't my first.
What?
This was made in 1988.
Right.
So
But then the story, the book that came out of this, right? It was then you could tell over a series of pages the story of Cassie and
That's right.
Barbie.
Yeah.
So
Because we did that.
Mhm.
And you see, one table has all the food on it.
Uh-huh.
And then here's, let's say, me and my brother, laying on the mattress thing.
Uh-huh.
And then my mother and father entertaining their friends and playing cards. And the table was all next to them, was full of food. Oh, those were nice days, yes.
Well,
And
absolutely.
see the clothes up there, you can take your clothes up there and hang them on the line. You know, you can't do that anymore. That's over.
Yeah. So one of a woman named Cecile Kidd is asking Faith. She wondered if you could say what motivates you. Your work is so amazing. Wants to know what inspires you.
Well, I have to be inspired by some form of what's happening.
Yeah.
And then I make art out of it, because I love making art, and I've been doing it all my life.
Right.
And so I'm accustomed to creating visions of people, places, and things that I find exciting in the world.
Yes.
And yeah, I want to remember them, and I can do it. So why not?
Yeah. You absolutely can. So I wonder, we have a couple of other quilts of yours to look at. There's one called We Came to America from 1997,
Okay.
which maybe we can pull that up for people.
Okay, now this is, oh yeah, We Came to America. We
Right.
came to America, right.
Right.
And what I want to say about this is from my American collection, #1, in 1997. And it was to make an image of the
Statue of Liberty.
the Statue of Liberty, which originally was a Black woman. Okay, and hardly anybody knows that.
I did
but
not know
me.
that. I did not
Okay.
know that.
Okay,
So,
well, now you got it. Check it out. The original woman
was Black.
was Black. She was a Black woman, but of course that was not going to work.
Right.
So no, that's not going to work. So she had to get out of there, and the man who sculpted it, let me see, do I have him down here? No. Art by Women Collection, gift of Linda Lee Alter.
That's who made it possible for the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts to have this powerful image.
Yeah.
Which,
okay, but I'm talking about the history of where it came from.
Right, the Statue of Liberty.
This man, I gotta find out what his name is, who scheduled this to be done, but nobody liked it. So he had to change it.
This is just your
Ah.
vision.
That's my vision.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is your vision. It's like
That's
you
what-
reclaimed, right? The
Because
Statue
I
of
know
Liberty's
that they-
blackness. Yeah.
Because I know that the original one was a Black woman.
Was a black woman. And so
Yeah.
you
The
showed that.
original Statue of Liberty was a Black
Was a black woman. And here it looks like you're invoking how
So, but
people came to America.
It wouldn't last
Right.
because nobody wanted a Black woman as the Statue of Liberty,
Liberty.
okay? But she was a Black woman.
So so you
So they had to-
intervened. Yeah.
Yeah, so of course, she is, let me see, I want to say, what did he do about it? He had to change that.
Yeah,
I forgot the name of the man who painted, who
I know. I forgot
did that.
too. Oh,
Huh?
I used to know his name too. So,
Yeah,
I'm
So
getting a
they had-
message here from our producer who is telling us that we have to move along. He wants us to move
Okay.
along, which is
move along.
so I'm wondering here, I have another question from Ruth Ginsburg Place, and she
Mhm.
wants to know, how are you responding to current happenings in your art?
Well, I'm floored, but I'm gonna do some work on it. I have to see which way I'm going exactly. This is a very difficult time for me.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
gonna take me a while to see it
Back.
and feel it and do it.
Right.
I'm coming.
I know you are. So I'm going to show folks one more picture of yours here that it's called Hate is a Sin from 2007. And I have to tell you, when I was out at some of the protests, I thought they could really use some Faith Ringgold graphics out there. And so I wondered, this print shows a Confederate flag branded with the words "Hate is a Sin," and then with this inscription around it that describes a shocking incident that happened in '71.
Mhm.
And then this is from 2027, so it's some 40 years later. And I wondered what had made you think back to that 40 years later to memorialize it.
We were demonstrating against the Whitney Museum in New York because, they were all not showing the work of African American people. At least they were, on occasion, the Black men were getting shows, but not any of the women. So I decided that I was going to get some.
The eggs, 50%.
Oh, right, the eggs. Oh, God. Yeah, I got hard-boiled eggs and I boiled them, but I didn't want them to be raw because I didn't want the eggs to be raw because that'd make a mess in the museum. I was gonna
So you were protesting, but you didn't want to make a mess?
No, I didn't want to do that. So I boiled my eggs and put 50% on it because I thought there should be 50% Black women.
Women.
As a matter of fact, Michelle gave me that notion. I said, Michelle, we're going to make up something because the museums are not showing any of our work. This is terrible.
Yes.
And so she said, I said, but everybody who demonstrates always has a percentage.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I gotta do that. I gotta tell them, not only do they have to show some Black artists, but they have to give us a percentage.
Yes, the 50%. Yes.
Yeah. And so I asked Michelle. I said, Michelle was what, 18, 19, something like that. And I asked Michelle, I said, come on. I said, what do you think? There should be a percentage of women that we're, what, rooting for. Tell them what to do. So they,
Well, and we
and,
still are. We still have to make that percentage. We haven't quite
well,
gotten there yet by any
yes,
means.
we know, but the point is, we're trying.
Right. That's
So,
true. This is true.
Anyway,
She said 50%.
she said, Michelle said 50%. She was doing her homework in the other room. And so she stopped for a minute and she said, 50%. And I said, oh my God, this poor child. She doesn't understand. I said, this is the Whitney Museum, and it's the percentage of women that we're going to demonstrate for, right?
Right.
And that was 39 years ago.
Go.
In 1968, slavery is hate is a sin.
And
And that's the
still
work
is.
that I'm talking about around here.
Yeah.
But
Right.
she came up with this, she came up with
Up with
this.
the eggs and the 50%. So Faith, I have two.
I didn't want to say 50% because I thought that was a little bit too much.
You thought that was too high.
I thought it was a little high.
Negotiating tactic.
So, but you know what? I didn't want her to be more demanding than me. So I had to do it. I said, Michelle, what did you say, honey? Did you, what would you tell me again? She said, 50% women. Said, oh my God, this poor child.
Well, that's a good. So,
But,
Faith, I have a live
like
question. I have a live question for you, and I think it leads into the to the end of our conversation. And our live question comes from Leonard Marcus, who has been a MoMA member for 32 years. And he wants to know if you're thinking of making another children's book like Tar Beach.
If I'm making another.
Are you writing another children's book?
Writing another children's book. Now.
Well, the last one I did was We Came to America.
Right. So let's actually, you so kindly agreed to read to us from this as the end of our conversation.
Okay, you want me to do it now?
Yeah, I think, shall we do that? That would just be great before we say
We
goodnight
Came to
everyone.
America is dedicated to all the children who come to America. May they find peace, freedom, and prosperity in their new home. May we welcome them and inspire them to sustain a love and dedication to peace, freedom, and justice for all. We came to America, every color, race, and religion, from every country in the world. Some of us were already here before the others came. And some of us were brought in chains, losing our freedom and our names. We traveled from our birthplace. No, wait a minute. I don't, is this right?
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. We came to America, every color, race, and religion from every country in the world, right? Mm-hmm. We traveled from our birthplace by boat and by plane. Some of us came running from injustice, fear, and pain. We came to America every color, race, and religion from every country in the world. We brought along our joyful song, our stories wise and true. Our music colored the air, sounds of beauty everywhere. Our dance now freed our pain, gently like soothing rain. Our food, our fashion, our art helped make America great. We came to America, every color, race, and religion from every country in the world. In spite of where we came from, or how, or why we came, we are all Americans, just the same.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for everything. I think, you know, over the decades, you have just inspired millions of people and generations of children. And your motto, anyone can fly, all you got to do is try, does indeed say it all. We are just so grateful to you for being here tonight and for your art and your vision and your voice. It's something I think the country and the world need right now. And I'm just very grateful to you.
Oh, yes, we need something. I hope it's me, a little bit anyway. Give me a little piece of it.
A little piece, right? A
May-
little piece of it. Someone who is as courageous and visionary as you. So I think tonight, Faith, I'm looking here, folks tuned in from all over the world to hear you talk tonight. From Mexico, from Los Angeles, Virginia, Florida, Vancouver, Maine, Portland, Philly, San Diego, Idaho, Colorado, Wisconsin. Wow. So it's Buenos Aires, Brazil, the Dominican Republic, Montreal, and then Vermont, Miami, Connecticut, and Oklahoma. And I'm sure I probably left some off the list. So,
Gloria wants to read
Yes.
something to you.
Yes.
And
oh
And,
yeah,
and everybody, all the listeners, about the Statue of Liberty, one of the listeners just wrote into me and said, yes, Faith, you are absolutely right. The face of the Statue of Liberty was changed after the United States complained about race of the statue. She had chains on her arms to represent slavery. The statue represented slavery at first.
yeah,
So
and
you're
the chains are
completely
still
right.
at her feet. If you
Yeah.
go there, you could see
Go and
right
look.
around her feet are the chains still.
Mhm.
Thank you all for helping us to recover,
Thank
right? That
you.
and reclaim that important part of history, which,
All right.
right, yet
Thank
one
you,
of many,
Faith.
many stories like that. So I think we have to say goodnight. Like we say thank you to all of you out there. And remember, you can stay up to date with everything that's happening here at moma.org and on magazine. And you'll find there a lot more information about Faith Ringgold. There's an introductory video, there are audio recordings with Faith's voice, and the poet Crystal Williams' Elegy for Us, written in response to Ringgold's die, is there too. So before I say goodnight, I want to thank Faith especially, but also her daughters, Michelle and Barbara and Dorian, and all my colleagues across the museum who've made all of this possible. And I thank all of you out there for tuning in. Hope everybody stays home, stays well, and comes and enjoys some more virtual views from the Museum of Modern Art with us over the weeks ahead. We look forward to seeing you at MoMA as soon as it's possible to reopen the museum. We miss all of you. So thank you and good night.
We miss not being able to come
Yeah,
very
that,
much. But
I
we
can't
can
wait
live with that.
to see you there, which
All right.
hope is soon. Okay, good
Okay.
night. Good
I
night.
do
Faith.
too.
Thank
Okay,
you
good
so much.
night.
Take care.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you,
Good
Barbara.
night.
Good
Good
night.
night.